All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Profoundly Pro Spotlight series. For anyone that isn't familiar with this series, the Pro Spotlights are really a chance for us to dive deep and get tactical with pros that really understand what's actually working in practice every day. There's no fluff, no theory. This is just focused on real conversation about the strategies and approaches that make a difference. And today we're talking about integrations and data syncs, something that is top of mind for a lot of our customers and pros. It's one of the areas where customers often feel really kind of ping-ponged back and forth between HubSpot and potentially some of the app partners. They're trying to solve a problem, and it's complicated, which we'll get into. So, our guests today are the folks who really know how to cut through a lot of that noise and just make it work. I'm joined by Khristian Rodriguez and Trent Little. We're going to cover everything from why integration projects are unique in the HubSpot ecosystem and services space to how to do discovery, technical scoping, some of the common integration failures, like some of the causes for how projects go sideways, and what customers need to know before kicking off an integration project to make sure that it's as successful as it can be. We'll leave time at the end for Q&A, so bring your questions if you have them. Sound good?
Great.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. To kick things off, can you guys give a quick background on your journey and sort of your path to where you are today? Trent, might start with you if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so been in the world of HubSpot for about pretty much 4 years at this point. Prior to getting into the HubSpot ecosystem, I was in more traditional data engineering for about a year and a half, with like data science and business analytics background before that. Um, it- so the year and a half was data engineering prior to HubSpot was a lot of work with like setting up custom Python scripts to pull from public or private APIs and pushing that into uh, a SQL or NoSQL databases, and then sometimes even using a JavaScript app to work with that data. And then ended up in the HubSpot ecosystem as a technologist. First, worked at a couple of agencies for the first 3 years, and then I've been primarily freelance since beginning of 2025. So there's been a lot of movements and changes within the HubSpot space itself. A lot of progress on the side of integrations and working with the backend, but um, primarily doing solution engineering, solutions architecture work at this point in time. So yeah, got a lot of more of that traditional background that translated well, I guess.
Awesome. Excited to dig in.
Yeah.
Christian?
Yeah. Let's see. I actually worked for HubSpot back in 2022 for about a year and a half. I was the technical support specialist. So whenever people had questions, I'd be the first one to answer and help them. Started deep diving into API and integrations and how to solve like those error codes and things like that. And I really got familiar with that and built a lot of curiosity around me. Around right before I got hired into HubSpot, I was actually studying to be a developer. So I was studying software developer and how to build custom apps too. So it was a good segue into the HubSpot ecosystem, doing those two
Yeah.
things. After I left HubSpot, I worked for a few orgs where I kind of like refined those skills using the custom coded workflows and then moving on to learning like AWS and Azure, how to build APIs properly. Um, and ever since then, for the past 3 years, I've just been working with HubSpot solutions and architecting, designing integrations, reading API documents for other platforms, and just learning, what's next.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm so excited to dig in here. Like you both are experts in the integration space, and I think it's like a really unique space. There's it's pretty complex and takes a lot of focus, which you've both done. I'm curious, like, to get into some of the questions because I'm eager here. Like, from your perspective, what makes an integration project different from like other HubSpot work?
Christian, I'll let you go first on this one. You want?
Yeah, definitely. Um, so it looks different. I think of there's two categories really for like normal HubSpot work. there's like your strategy base where you're just building out workflows, you're trying to set up lead scoring, you're building out a sales process, or you're working directly on the platform, creating like properties or report templates. There's like a basic things you can do within platform.
Yeah.
For integration work or projects, you're dealing with other platforms. You're dealing with their technical documentation. You're dealing with their limitations and having to learn what those limitations are, especially if you're not familiar with that platform.
Yeah.
Um, so that's where like some of the challenges coming, and then being a technical project manager as well
Yeah.
is one of those challenging things as opposed to just owning HubSpot. You're owning two different platforms.
Yeah. Makes sense. Anything you'd
Yeah.
add, Trent?
Yeah, to add on to like what you're talking about, just complexity is a lot higher,
Yeah.
typically. And I mean, there's a lot of discovery and scoping that is required to make things successful, in determining like, is there a native integration that's in the marketplace? Does it work well, or does it work in the way that we want it to? What are the options for building out custom integrations, whether it's using third-party like iPaaS tool or building out a script that's hosted somewhere. There's a lot of different ways to manage integrations, and it's really dependent on what you're trying to integrate with HubSpot.
Yeah.
And that also adds challenge for like what that was a good point you brought up, Christian, of being a technical project manager is being able to, as close as you can, anticipate like the scope of work that's required and how long things will take for
Yeah.
different integrations. Because as most things, it's most companies have, even if they use the same tools, so most of the time it's going to be used slightly differently. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah.
Well, I guess, I leapt in there and it dawned on me as you were both sharing, some customers may not know what an integration is. So, like, how would you demystify that for someone that wasn't familiar? What is an integration?
Yeah, the way I like to explain it to my client is we're basically building a way that two softwares can talk to each other. We're building a translator for them, and
Yeah.
that's really how I like to summarize it.
Yeah. So something I'm personally really excited about is HubSpot's app ecosystem, right? All these third-party connected apps that extend the power and might of the HubSpot platform, help it do things that, the core product might never be able to do. You need an integration to do that, right?
Yeah, especially if it's like a particular tool that is, I mean, especially with I'm seeing a lot more like larger, more enterprise level companies come over
Yeah.
to HubSpot right now, and most of the time they have some ERP that they're using outside of HubSpot that they want to maintain, or maybe they're using Salesforce for sales and they want to use HubSpot for marketing. I'm seeing there's a lot that's pretty common itself.
Yeah.
So just how does the data between each platform move and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
talk to each other? Yeah.
I don't know if you have a mental model. Like my mental model is you've got these like commercial off the shelf apps that you can go to the app marketplace and like procure. And they often have an integration associated with them. And then you've got like custom integrations. Is that how you think about it? Or do you think about it, is it more nuanced than that?
I start in those two buckets, and then especially if it ends up in the bucket of being custom, like where the marketplace app doesn't fit the need, or there isn't one, then that's where there's more avenues potentially, depending on what the requirements are to access the data in whatever platform you
Yeah.
are
Yeah,
going into.
it depends on the need of the client, right? If it's something basic that's already been pre-built by the platform itself, great. You always want to go with pre-built connectors because they're maintained by the enterprises that built them.
Yeah.
One thing to be careful is third-party providers that make a connector between the two. Um, HubSpot's really good about like privacy and stuff like that, but if it's something that's not built by the provider itself, just kind of be careful around those things.
Yeah.
And then for custom build, you do get your own privacy that you can apply to it because you're building yourself. So
Yep. Yep. So you've got just thinking through it for folks that again won't be as familiar or anywhere close as you both to it. You've got go to the app marketplace, look for an app, it's got an integration. That integration could have been built by HubSpot. It could have been built by the third-party app provider, right? I think those are the two motions for sort of off-the-shelf integrations. And you can also go and get a custom integration made by an expert, one of you, something like this, to say like a NetSuite, right?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. What would drive somebody to, and sorry for diving deep here. I think this is really helpful for folks that don't know. Like, what would, are there instances when a customer, there's an off-the-shelf integration, but they're like, nah, might not be fit for purpose. Like, I might actually need a custom integration built.
Yeah, again, it depends on the process and their end goal. If it's just, hey, I need basic data just synced, that's it, from one system to the other, that's when I would recommend a pre-built connector. If they have their own complexity to it, like, hey, I want to do something with the data before it gets to HubSpot, or I want to do something with it before I send it off from HubSpot, that's when you want to customize them, or from my experience at least.
Yep. Yep. And why do
Yeah,
you, oh, sorry, Trent.
no, you're fine. There's it's like you already mentioned NetSuite as an example. It's like there is a native marketplace integration with NetSuite.
Hmm.
I've maybe once actually had a client that used it and it worked the way that they needed it to.
Yeah.
Just because it's NetSuite is its own ERP and it's a complex system. And for example, there was a client that they wanted to have all their orders synced over into HubSpot, but they were running into rate limit issues where they didn't they weren't getting as much data pushed over as frequently as they needed it to
Yep.
for the data to be reliable.
Yep.
So they needed to have something custom built in NetSuite to push over
Got it.
information in HubSpot.
Got it. Got it. Super
Hmm.
helpful.
Hmm.
Um, so with those options, why do customers so often share that they feel like ping-ponged? Do you know what I mean by ping-ponged? Like I hear from customers all the time that are like, oh, I used this integration or app and went and tried to get help from one party on this thing and they couldn't help me, so I went to the other party and they couldn't help me. Like, what do I do?
Yeah, I can kind of speak on that. Working at HubSpot, we were limited on the amount of support we could give. So from like a support side, you're limited. Then the best thing you can do or say is, hey, go to that provider or find someone with information that can help you. So then it comes down to, I think, companies just the amount of support that they can provide for integrations.
Yeah.
Just comes down to that specifically, as well as maybe not taking more accountability, like saying, hey, let me fully dive into the issue. Let's do our troubleshooting. If we can't find anything, go to their platform support and then have them do troubleshooting, and then
Mm,
we'll both work together. I know from a support standpoint, that can be very time consuming, sensitive. So those things can be a factor into why you would be ping pong.
yeah. Yeah. I really feel like we've gotten great, and not to toot your horns for you, but like I think a lot of customers have said they've really appreciated the chance to connect with one person and have the person know both sides or all the sides, because there can be more than even just two. And you just make it work. You sort of absorb that complexity and you're like, this is, I've, I'll just do it. Yeah. Yeah. Um, cool. Well, I guess when a customer's like thinking about, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a customer who is like, oh, I've got the core HubSpot product. I needed to do X. Maybe it's like CPQ related, although I know HubSpot has a core CPQ product. Let's say it falls outside of the realm of what's possible on the native product. What do they do? Like, do they go to the marketplace and just browse around? Should they reach out to one of you, someone, an expert, in the integration space? Like, what's their path to sort of getting connected with the right app and integration?
I
Yeah.
um I think for that it's a bit dependent. So like if the customer is of HubSpot, if they have someone that's technical enough to understand like what's needed and do something there, um, then they're probably going to rely on internal sources. But
Mm.
I think it's always good to like if you have the availability and if you have the time and the willingness to spend a little bit of money on it, it might be more of an investment. Think of it that way,
Yeah.
where you can speak to an individual, whether it's through profoundly or through other means, through the agency partnership. There's a lot of different avenues depending on what the need is.
Yeah.
Just to have someone confirm, because you're using the example of CPQ. There are a good amount of CPQ tools out there.
Yeah.
Some of them have higher levels of functionality than others, and they all have their own pricing systems. And some of them integrate really well with HubSpot. Some of them don't have integrations at all, so they need to
Yeah.
be custom built. So, and just defining what the needs are actually, that's for bringing in someone external that knows the ecosystem well,
Yeah.
can assist with that.
I'm glad you raised that because if it were me, that's what I would do. I would come to Profoundly, or I'm biased, of course, but like I would come to an expert or experts and say, "Hey, I'm trying to do X, and there's lots of options available." Versus like, "Oh, I heard about so and so app. I'm going to go all in on that one thing that I've heard, and potentially." Have a blind spot relative to a different app in the same space that might fit my needs better and cheaper or faster or whatever it is. Coming to Profoundly, they can post a project and say, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking about. Would love some thought partnership and some guidance on the best path forward." I think that would work, right?
Yeah, and I think for like a best practices, always reach out to someone who's knowledgeable in the area. So like definitely reach out to profoundly. Even if it's just to do research or validate, like Trent was saying, just to validate what you're wanting to do. Get an expert to kind of look into your situation, assess it, and just tell you what is the best course of action. I think just a great way to start. Even if you don't move forward with the project, at least you know someone looked into it, and can kind of give you suggestions.
Yeah. For someone that's headed down that path, when you connect with them for a discovery conversation, like what do you need to understand before you can really tell a customer whether or not it's possible? Like, what do you focus on in those discovery calls?
Trent, you can go.
Sure. There's a handful of things to go over in those discovery calls, but what we're just talking about, the main thing is what's the need, what actually needs to be done and if we're setting up an integration, like, okay, well, what data are we setting up? What platforms are we working with? How do you want the data to be moving? Do you want it to be like just moving from one platform to another? So is it just order information from NetSuite going into HubSpot?
Yeah.
Or are you also having updates that happen in HubSpot after the order is created to also update what's going on? Is it a bi-directional? So does it go back and forth? Um, it, there's just identifying the overall architecture and like talking through that of like what that end result looks like.
Yeah.
That can create like a clear path of like being able to determine what is actually needed to make it work. And normally there's many times there will be multiple potential options, and a lot of times it will come down to either complexity or cost or time. Just what any of those combinations and factors of what the end result is. But always try to recommend the one that will have the most secure, but also longest lasting, like without having to go back and less maintenance as possible without having to bring in someone external to keep making adjustments as you go.
Yeah. How important is it, like, and curious your take on this, that an expert be intimately familiar with the app that is being integrated? Like, I won't use any specific examples, but like, there's I'm generally able to integrate at a technical level versus I'm an expert in this piece of software.
Yeah, I mean, it's ideally you always want to pick someone that has experience building before. It's faster, they're more aware of its capabilities, its limitations. There are some softwares that they don't have like an open integration or any documentation. So knowing someone that has a process for quickly ramping up with a new software is also important in that
Mhm.
sense. So ideally, like, your first choice, someone with experience. Second choice, someone that has a process for quickly ramping up would be my suggestions.
Yep.
And just to add on to that is exactly what you said, Christian, is like, of course, it's ideal if you have someone that is an expert with that. Like, if someone is, if they really know Zoho, like, and they do a really good job with Zoho integrations with HubSpot, and that's their thing, like, great, go with them. But if you have a nuanced, like, industry niche specific platform that you're trying to get integrated, there's the likelihood of finding someone who's an expert in integrations with HubSpot and an expert in that platform becomes very small.
Yeah.
And it, just finding someone that has the background and exactly what you said, Christian, of the process and of how to approach integrations that they've never done before. That's the next thing to take a look at and be considerate of.
Yeah. How do you go about like deciding between a native integration, some like middleware layer like Zapier or Make or whatever, a custom API build or something else? Like how do you diagnose that?
Yeah, it depends on a need. Some companies, depending on their industry, need stricter privacy on like security between integrations. Um, so I mean, I would still recommend the Zapier Make, depending on the complexity. But some just need that customized privacy, their own, resources. It has to be hosted on their own servers. So those are like the big things that would kind of result in it being custom built. For like SMBs, it's usually going to result in those middlewares using Zapier, and maybe because of the flexibility. I think there's a new one called N8N where you could kind of do your own custom code too,
Mm,
but it's securely hosted as well. So depending on the time frame of the project, the budget, the middleware tends to be the easiest solution for like generalized projects, in my opinion.
got it. Got it. Well, as you're executing against these, I'm just curious to dig into some of the projects that you've both seen. Like for the projects that have gone sideways, obviously before you've gotten involved, what tends to sort of be the cause of those sort of failures or challenges for customers? What are the typical things that cause things to go awry?
Um, Majority of the time, uh, it's normally, I would say, like, for any complex integration, I always feel like it's, no matter how well you plan, there's always something that comes up throughout
Yep.
it,
Yep.
whether it's a process that wasn't taken into consideration or just a rate limit that might come out from the backend API that's available from the platform. But to minimize those occurrences and to make communication like easy when they do happen, is spending a lot of time upfront of the project, doing a lot of just scoping and documentation and discovery.
Mm,
Um, like, spend the time upfront, like, figuring out what the limitations are and that it actually will work, and doing some like initial testing of the platform, make
yeah.
whatever you're integrating with. That will mitigate a lot of the downstream potential issues that do come up, or that most people have experienced
Yeah.
in our space.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
kind of validate that, I came onto a project where they pre-built the integration, but it wasn't working the way they wanted it, and it all came down to proper scoping. Like Trent said, if you don't
Hmm.
understand what you're solving for or the issue, it can lead to many iterations. You're building something that isn't going to work for the client, so then
Mm,
you're wasting time. Um, so that is kind of the big thing.
yeah. And so as customers getting ready for an engagement like this, like what are some of the things that they need to be prepared to provide, or like what questions do they need to be prepared to answer for you?
Definitely have like know what issue you're solving for or why you want to connect your data to something else.
Hmm.
It's the big one, of course. And then ideally, have a process in mind. Like, hey, I know I want to connect my data to this platform because I need to do X, or I want to see this result out of it, is honestly like the big thing.
Yeah.
I would also say be ready to, especially if you are a part of a corporation or in an industry where security is important, it, for someone to come in and build an integration for you, they're going to have to get access into whatever platform you're integrating. So be prepared to give proper like administrator level access for most of the time. Sometimes you don't need to go all the way that far as it, but be prepared to give access to your data if you're able to provide just data structure of like what you're trying to bring over and to make data mapping easy. So that way, those conversations of like how information is moving from one platform to another and like where it's ending up.
Yeah.
Uh, just be ready for those type of conversations and that and permitting access.
Yeah. That makes sense. As you, let's say you've done one of these projects and I'm assuming like there's a finite scope to the project once the integration is done and it passes the standards and works, I'm assuming in a number of cases everybody goes their separate ways, to so to speak. What happens if something breaks? Like, do you typically see that the customer is able to maintain the integration, or do they tend to reach back out? Like, how does that sort of support model work?
Yeah, for my clients at least, I offer them like a month or so of support past go live. So we've launched a project, it's checked all the boxes. Something breaks within a month, I will gotta go back, double check everything. It could be like someone updated, like the platform updated their API scopes, or they changed an endpoint. So the call we're making isn't valid anymore. Those things I typically, don't like to charge for because it wasn't me that broke it. If it's something that's initially wrong with my code after I troubleshoot it, it all depends on what broke and why it broke.
Yeah, got it. Got it. Very cool.
It's relatively similar. It's where if it's an update or if there's sometimes there'll be where the initial like the MVP or like the initial scope of what the integration does works the way it needs to, but maybe they want certain things to be changed or altered or like they want things to be added
Yeah,
to it. So then there's more of that just conversation where it's a smaller scope, but just essentially redefining a new project to work on with them. But yeah, if it's something that I messed up or that I've broken, it's like then on our end we kind of have to at least I think most people will take the bite and just go
yeah,
ahead and get it fixed because they want to make sure that customers happy with what has been built.
yeah. I know that never happens, but good to know if it were to ever happen, you're there for them. Um, I guess one like is again we're thinking about customers who are thinking about integrations. Other than what we've talked through, maybe like having clarity of purpose on what you're trying to accomplish and so forth. Like any is there one piece of advice you would give to a customer uh, in this space?
Yeah, I would say have a like create your own. What I've seen from other orgs is they've created what's called like a vendor scorecard where they've built out the criteria that they're looking for from like a vendor or a pro, whether they want someone who is timely, who is communicative, just put like their core principles on there. Talk to talk to other vendors, as many like platforms, do your research, and then start grading them, right? That would be the best way to decide, just because there's so many people out there that offer solutions, there's so many platforms, agencies.
Yeah,
So one thing I've seen that's helped is create a scorecard, grade them based on your like principles, and that will
yeah,
help you decide on who to go with.
yeah.
I would say on that's I like that quite a bit. What I've come across that has put projects behind is when companies come in and they don't have the process of the internal processes well defined for the teams that are going to be in the teams and users that are going to be impacted by the integration.
Mm,
So it's hard to it can be difficult to build out an integration that works correctly if the internal process is not well defined or well structured.
got it. Got it. That's helpful. Awesome. I guess you raised something, you both raised something there that I would just double click on, I think. There's potentially a lot of people who might say, hey, I can do integrations, but the sort of their ability to actually do integrations has got to vary, I'm guessing. Uh, how would you evaluate, who to go with on a particular project?
Yeah. I think you ask about their experiences and how they troubleshoot is honestly one of the bigger things, and how they communicate. My top two things are showing people, hey, I've done it. Here's my proof that I can do it.
Yeah,
Here is how organized I am. I can show you that I can be basically a technical project manager and handle everything. And then I'm also timely and communicative. So those are like
yeah,
the top two things that I would look for.
yeah, yeah. Anything you'd add, Trent?
Yes, and I just want before I do, can you reiterate the question again?
So I'm thinking about the customer who's like, I sounds like I need an integration, and
Hmm.
there's potentially, let's say they didn't come to Profoundly and they were just out there talking to people who purport to do integrations. How would they kind of vet those folks and sort of parse who really knows what they're doing versus like someone that just might say they know what they're doing and they're not really sure?
Yeah, have just if you're able to provide a portfolio, great.
Yeah,
Um, or and a lot of times, I feel like you can suss out whether someone has the knowledge or skill set just by having an extended conversation um, about what the integration would require.
yeah,
Um, and because it depends on the level of complexity of the integration. So and just having an idea of if example, like if you're trying to integrate an ERP, whether it's NetSuite or like any of the big ones that are out there, and
yeah,
the person doesn't know what an ERP is, then probably not the person to go.
yeah.
I know
That's a
that's
flag.
simple, but yeah, I know it can be tough
Yeah,
to truly vet and understand. So
yeah,
try using background and portfolio as much as you can.
yeah.
I know that only gets so far sometimes.
Where would a portfolio be for someone that does integration, specializes in integrations? Like, where would they point a customer to? Genuinely asking, like, is there a solution for that?
That's I know there's GitHub. Like I will fully admit I haven't done a great job of like properly putting together an updated portfolio. I can talk about a lot of projects that I've done,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and hopefully and that's I think like the technicalities behind that and talking through how things potentially work has
yeah,
worked for me.
yeah,
Um, but I don't know if Christian, if you have
No,
a
yeah, I
project.
agree. As like a solopreneur, it's tough to kind of run everything, including like, hey, showcasing all your portfolio, like everything you've done, and be a
Yeah.
tech manager and run your clients. I think I personally haven't put out a way to showcase everything I've done besides what's in my head.
mm,
I think a challenging thing for solopreneurs, for obviously like an agency like Aptitude 8 or I think it's Amplitude 8, they have like the website, they have the blog, they
yeah,
have the case studies, right? That
Yep.
is
right,
the ideal sort of thing. That should be the standard,
yeah,
honestly. But for a
yeah,
solopreneur, it is challenging. So you just had to go off their experiences and just hear how they talk through their past experiences, kind of like an interview.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
What I've done is I have a document. It's not a website. It's not a GitHub like account. It's I have a document like a Google Doc that just lists all like not all, but it lists. I go through and I list the main subject line of like what the project is, what the integration is, like what encompassed it, and like a handful of bullets that of like what the project was, like how got it to work, and been how I've been able to internally
Yeah.
keep track of things because I also want to keep track of that myself. But
Yeah.
I haven't had to present that to anybody like on a client. Like, although I think on a couple profiles, like on different, like whether it's Profoundly or other places, like I have a few projects out of
Yeah.
those listed.
Yeah.
But
I've done something similar where actually I log into my AWS account and I show them the code I built. And I was like, hey, here's what I built. So I can build things. And
yeah.
then here's a walkthrough of what it does.
Hmm.
Nice. Well, listen, this is an open offer. If you all have documents like that or you want to sit down and talk through it, I would be more than happy to help update your profiles with your integration projects in Profoundly. Genuinely. Like it's such a valuable resource for customers and for experts. So would love to do that if you are ever interested. Um, cool. Um, what I might do at this point is open it up for any questions, Zach or Trevor, that you have. You feel free to come on camera and ask Trent or Khristian. No pressure if you don't have any questions. Let me just pull up bases here.
No real questions. I thought you guys did a great job. I was just kind of here hanging out, listening, doing a few other things, getting ready for my hug event next month. And no, I mean, I know you guys. You guys do a great job. You're very detailed, methodical, have good experience. So integrations are hairy beasts, and you got to have thick skin to do it. So I think you guys kind of demonstrated that well today.
Yeah,
Steve,
really well said. Super appreciate you guys.
Thanks,
I,
guys.
I have a question, Trevor. You and I have talked a lot about APIs,
Yeah.
right? Um, are they synonymous? Is an API and an integration the same thing? I should know
I
this,
mean,
but I don't.
an API is a way for applications to talk to each other. So a lot of integrations are based around an API. That said, there are integrations that are a little more tight, as in you are really bringing code into your code base that does the thing. Um, but if they got to talk back to whatever service you're using, they're going to do it via an API. Whether that's going to be REST calls or whether that's going to be webhooks to get things a little more live. There's a lot of these little details, and that's what makes it so hard is understanding all these little details and how each integration comes with their own easy to understand or not well easy to understand. Is the documentation good? Has someone trodden this path before and it's pretty clear, or is this kind of like no one's put these two things together before? We're just gonna have to figure it out. So it can be quite the challenge. Yeah, and as Zach said, like it takes a little bit of bravery sometimes because it can break in a rather scary way, or it can do amazing things. So yeah,
And
it's an interesting
not every
space.
API is built the same.
yeah,
No,
this is very true.
not every API
No.
behaves in a way that's predictable, and yeah. So
Yeah. I will say, like, if you ever like want to see what good documentation on an API looks like, go to the HubSpot knowledge base.
Yeah.
excellent.
It's very
That's
true.
HubSpot's knowledge base, like, and documentation of their API, and like just even being able to test the API within their knowledge base. The whole thing is just very well done. Not many, I haven't seen that across the board like very often. So,
Yeah, that's a huge checkbox. If there's a way to iterate
mhm.
quickly by
Hmm.
testing things, trying things out, the ones that are the worst are the ones that have no sandbox capabilities.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, shout out to HubSpot for doing that.
Here, here. Okay, last question, and it's for all of you. What was the last thing you vibe coded? Or what are you currently vibe coding? Anybody? Anybody vibe coding anything?
Yeah.
I haven't really gotten into a ton of it.
No.
I'm starting to, play around with it a little bit more. I think it's for me, it's more about like how much time do I have in the day and what am I going to dedicate my efforts towards? And for me right now with Hush, it's sales and marketing
Mm,
and working on more of, offloading the project management and the customer success to other members of the team.
Nice.
Which will allow me to, maybe do some more vibe coding and come up with some cool like calculators and tools and things for the website and other ways to kind of demonstrate value. I think throughout the process, like Chris Carolyn did a great job, I thought, with some of the stuff he's been working on recently. I don't know if you guys have seen any of that with the value first, using Claude Code and just kind of just all of a sudden he has got an interactive, website that's used for demonstrating the value that these projects bring. And so I'm like, okay, that's cool. I want to learn how to do this more. So
Yeah.
I've got I'm still green.
I
One of
would.
my
I hate to say it, but same thing. I actually haven't even vibe coded in a long time. I'd say the last time that I'm doing more like technical feasibility and discovery these past like 6 months,
Mm.
more than anything. And when I build something, it doesn't normally require it.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I haven't had much time outside of that to actually play around with it as much as I would like to.
Although
One
every
of
once in a
my
while, I still get a hit from my agent.ai website basher that
Nice.
I played around
nice.
with.
That's
I feel
great.
bad for all the people I've insulted to this point.
One of my personal projects I'm working on is actually being able to integrate like Siri if you have an iPhone to HubSpot. Because iPhone lets you make web API calls,
Yeah.
and you can use the shortcuts app for that. So making like an easy way for you to be like, "Hey Siri, how many leads do I have today?" or things like that, and it being able to like display it back to you on your phone.
That's
Will
cool.
it be able to like update properties too if you wanted it to?
Yeah, it's basically
Oh
you
my
use the
God.
shortcuts and you
We
can
got to
make webhook
talk.
call.
I've
That's
had this
cool.
idea
That's
for
cool.
so long, called windshield time.
Mhm.
And like for an application that sales reps could be using while they're, driving around and spending
Yeah, that was
hours
my
and hours
idea.
and hours of time on the road.
Yep.
And it's like, hey, I just had this meeting. Let's get my call notes into HubSpot. But I can't type or text while I'm driving. So let's just talk. And I've been waiting for the technology to get there to where you can actually do that. So that is freaking
Yeah.
awesome.
I want to add an LM to it to make it a little bit smarter. That's like the only thing holding me back.
That's awesome.
Man, you're going to have so many Maseratis in your garage.
Very cool. Trevor, anything
Well, if you need
anything
an
you're working
asshole with
on?
an orange hat to help you out,
I might reach out, honestly, yeah.
That's excellent. Yeah, no, for me, mostly when I'm using AI, it's more as a tool as opposed to vibe coding. So it's there to help as like suggestions or picking out when I'm getting something not quite right or just helping to brainstorm against. It acts like a little junior engineer that you can like ask questions to and have them do some tough tasks. But that's for when it's higher risk. When it's lower risk, prototyping, I love what Chris Carlin's doing, for example, because it shows value really quickly. It's a clickable prototype in a sense. It doesn't need to be hardened. There's so many cases where that's real. And so like at home, for example, like doing home automation stuff. Like if I just need to write some scripts to do automation, vibe coding that is no big deal because it's all living inside a sandbox. It's not touching the internet. It's just turning lights on and off. Like it's not connected to anything that creates fire. Like, and so it's a great place to like just quickly try out new ideas. So that's been a fun space. Side projects, great way to like try out ideas and see if they make sense before you commit to like real time making it robust. So yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, this has been awesome. Trent, Khristian, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us and with customers. Uh, Zach, Trevor, thanks for joining and sharing your thoughts here too and questions. And we'll edit the video after and go from there.
Cool.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Good
Awesome.
job, guys.
Cool.
Yeah, amazing
Thanks,
work.
everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Bye,
See you
everyone.
later.
All right. Have a good day.
Bye.
Have a good one.